Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto, and thanks button in the info box below this video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected. And if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now, we are joined by Arwin, 10th Man, Chocolate Sane, the Adam Meakin, Eli, Neil, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Hello. Yay! Good afternoon, everyone.
Morning.
Good morning, good afternoon, welcome one and all. Good to have you all.
Yeah, good afternoon.
So, I'll start off by getting it straight out in the open for all of you who've written to me in the last 24 hours, and that is a lot of you. So, lots and lots of people didn't like yesterday's show and made it explicitly clear to me by DMs, IMs, Skype messages, emailed, you name it. People got in touch with me en masse after yesterday's show to complain.
Wow. So I don't show up for one day and immediately everything goes to shit.
No, exactly.
You too? Because I have no idea what happened.
So we had a guy on, Matthias, who's been on a few times, and typically he's a bit of a troll and he swears a bit too much, but sometimes the conversation can turn into something very useful. So in one instance, he played Flat Earther, I played Baller, and the back and forth exchange got trimmed out into a video, which is wonderful. So with hindsight, I can say it wasn't necessarily the best thing to let him go yesterday, but you don't know that until you know it. That's my excuse. That said, 10th Man was keen to point out to me in the pre-show that that shouldn't be the case. The show should have a PG rating. It should be more shareable. And, you know, when you're getting close to what you think is the line, maybe put the line a few feet back because he stepped over it long before you decided to do anything. In fact, do nothing in that example. But there we go. As I say, with hindsight, no, it didn't yield any great discussion points or revelations at the end of it. But, you know, you don't know that. Like I say, I'm not going to keep rattling off my excuses. I didn't reply to anybody because by the time I'd read about the fourth or fifth one, I was like, okay, this is too much work to respond to. I'm just going to have to address this on the live show. So I did put the title as complaints. And before we even get to housekeeping, I'm just going to get out of the way. I've read all your complaints. I do take on board everything you've said. Those of you who spoke to me about it verbally, yes, I have listened. Hopefully I've stressed that to you when you've told me that I do appreciate you taking the time to moan, because they're important. Moans are much more detrimental than people who won't even necessarily say that they enjoyed the show. They'll just hopefully come back. But if they're moaning, they may not. So, you know, it is a serious issue. And hopefully the show will be kept more PG rated going forward. Anyway, was there anything that anybody wanted to add to that?
Yes. Chocolate and Arwen, you missed how when you exhale in the cold, you see orbs of gas rising.
What?
Yes, you heard me right.
I'm pretty sure that's actually micro water droplets
Yes, we covered
that
that.
immediately condensate because it's cold.
That's correct.
Stop
Yes.
coming up
Gonna
with
be
a
carried by
sensible, balanced response, Owen.
This is not like the 2017 Arwin we're all familiar with, is it?
What?
I said it's not like we were discussing you in the pre-show, so we were saying, I explained to Neil that back in the day, when you and I both, I was just less open about it. We're on that kind of feast of nonsense journey. Now, we've never, neither of us will be around the bush about what we've gone through in terms of our, feast of nonsense. There's no other way to put it. But as I put it in the pre-show, we vomited up that garbage food that we stuffed down our faces when we first got here quite a long time ago. But certain aspects of that did yield fantastic results. For example, Arwen versus Sleeping Warrior. And the net result of the relative density disequilibrium argument can only be summarised in such concise terms by me right now because of those two and their discussions. And Arwen was on the more unconventional side of the discussion. And now Arwen's not necessarily like that as much as he was back in the day. And back in the day, although it's a very different reason, Arwen got complaints. People would moan about Arwen. You shouldn't have him on your show. Get lost. I like Arwen. It was my attitude at the time. But the same applies to Neil now. People on occasion will moan about Neil. And it's reasonably consistent. I'm not saying I'm overrun with Neil's complaints. I'm not. But, you know, people will occasionally say, oh, you know, don't want to hear Neil telling them how correct they are in the middle of a conversation. You know, I just like, whatever, get lost. But about the same sort of level. But then you get to yesterday or over the last 24 hours, and that's a different story altogether. You know, there's lots of people who are listening to the show and enjoying it. And as I said earlier, people don't necessarily tell you good things. You won't get praise. It's like the sound. Nobody tells you when you've got great sound. People tell you a lot if you've got distortion and it's unlistenable. They'll tell you pretty quickly. But that means they won't come back. You know, if they're not saying anything, that's normally a good sign. Because you don't get praise for good sound, you don't get praise for keeping the show PG rated, but you do get complaints when people go off the handle, swear, and it doesn't yield a good result at the end. So there we go. Any more on this? If not, we'll go to housekeeping.
Well, I must be absolutely perfect then, because sometimes the amount of lack of activity in my chat is driving me nuts on my show.
That's correct.
I should be more incorrect and stumbly and dumb, and then maybe more people are going to actually say something to try and correct me, so that I know they're there.
Summer, Arwen, the things I know seasonally what's going to happen in terms of what to expect in terms of the view figures, the interaction figures, all those sorts of things are seasonal. People are doing stuff. People are out on holiday at the moment. Here in the UK, it's Jubilee weekend, so people are doing stuff.
Yeah, they're all being lazy asses or like doing completely different things on vacation time. I know.
What's Jubilee weekend? Ho, Jubilee week. What is that?
Something to do with the Queen or something.
Is for the fact that the Queen's, is it 70 years she's been on the throne? We got 2 days off. So for her 70 years of luxury that we've supported her in, we've been gifted 2 days to celebrate.
That balances out.
Yeah, so we're all supposed to put up bunting and wave flags. My wife's reasonably, I don't know if you Americans would call it patriotic. So, you know, she's gone out and bought the bunting and the red, white and blue sprinkles for the ice cream, and we'll be having a picnic. And, you know, I don't necessarily like it. I don't mean I'm a miserable bastard. That's not what I mean. What I mean
You
is
mean the Union Jack?
I don't like what it represents.
Red, white and blue?
Well, in the same way when we're, I don't know, we can now talk about this sort of stuff. Back in the day, 2 years ago, we were encouraged here in the UK to go out and clap for the NHS just before they locked us all up. So I didn't agree with that either. Or just when we were locked up, one of the things that was an exception to being locked down was going out to clap the NHS, our health service. Now, I appreciate Adam, you know, notwithstanding our company at the moment. That really pissed me off. You know, I
used to hide that. It was so cringeworthy and awful. It was like brainwashing, collective brainwashing. Come outside and chant.
And clap. And clap together as one.
Like
I hated it. And my wife was like, yeah, but you get out. Everyone's locked down. Everyone, you know, they're all going out for this. It's like, so let me get it right. We're corralled indoors. We're locked down. And then we're given permission to go out and stay within a certain distance of other people as we clap for a government service. Okay. Yeah, I won't be going outside now.
Yeah, that sounds like a celebration of freedom to me.
It was, yeah. I'm celebrating.
Well, standard 9084 policy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but there we go.
You only get to enjoy a bit of freedom if you're going to be worshipping the one that actually took that freedom from you. That's standard policy.
Yes, but this is turning into a political discussion, so let's do housekeeping, because it's clear that the complaints section is over, and what's going on at the moment in terms of Arwen's lack of chat participants is now resolved.
There's a good chat.
It's summertime. It's just summertime. Man, the time has flown. I can't believe it's already June anyway. So it's just a summertime thing.
There was a good thing from the chat, just to draw a line under that. A very nice pun. Isn't the NHS supposed to cure the clap?
The what?
The clap. Don't detail what that means.
That's a good one.
That one's good.
Don't get it.
It's an English slang for venereal disease, Owen.
Oh God.
Not just English. Oh, yeah, English. Yes,
Well,
yes,
what do
yes.
you speak now?
I speak United States.
Brooklyn.
I speak United States. I got you. The clap.
VD is what the PC people call bloatware. Let's see how much VD there is on this computer when it's got pre-installed software. Just a side note. Let's do some housekeeping because we're way off track here. Any evidence you can acquire an elevation angle measurement from a curved baseline. Feel free to join in Discord.
Well, you could probably only do it if you just use curved geometry where everything can be bent. And then it can work out. But it's very difficult to actually do that, though. Because, yeah, now all these lines aren't straight anymore. And how is it going to work?
But elements of non-Euclidean still have Euclidean within them, don't they? Adam was explaining this about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Were you here?
I think so. Maybe. Right?
You're still going to need straight lines and angles and so on and so forth.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, definitely. Especially when acquiring an elevation angle measurement to these lights in the sky. Not that we need heights for them. We definitely don't need distances, nor do we claim them here on Flat Earth Debate. Because it's not useful to. We're not travelling to these stars. However, there is a faction who think they live on a globe and think they're travelling to these lights with certain distances. So for them, they definitely need to ascribe the height to these stars. We, on the other hand, appreciate that you can get a 2-for-1 out of the angle measurement, not the height measurement. Just want to make that clear. Any evidence the distance to the sun? Obviously, heliocentrists claim that it's 93 million miles away and claim to be sending stuff there, don't they? So you need a distance ascribable. You'll be forgetting all of that if you're a globe believer, if you want to do any sort of navigation using the stars, though.
Right. That's a compartmentalization between like the Milky Way and our solar system setup idea of it. Then, oh, look, there's actual distances there. It's all really cool, and you can model it out with some marbles in the setup, right? But if you're going to go terrestrial, then, now suddenly all these distances are quite in the way now and not really useful. So it's just all infinitely far away. It's much easier. And then you can just think that they have distances. It's not relevant, but yeah, you just have to measure the angles. So,
but if you
You know
have
what I just-
distances to these things precise enough that you can send rovers there or wherever, like let's say Mars, you can send a rover to Mars. I would think you would pretty accurately have distance, right? Why wouldn't we ever after that pretend that we don't?
You know what's amazing that you said Mars and Alwyn said Milky Way? I was just thinking about it. You got candy bars named Milky Way, Mars, and then you have one that's called Snickers.
Got a super chat from Tony Whitcomb who says, hope you guys have a lot of pun today. Sorry, there's no F in pun. Marvellous.
That's a good one.
Very good. Thank you for the super chat.
It's like they're laughing.
Yeah,
at us.
and in rap we say that's a good bar.
now, but they're doing it because it's attracting, right? It's like, oh, you like space and planets, and oh, look at this candy. It's the same target group, right? Kids.
What, like a Mars bar?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
yeah, but
Milky
then
Way.
you have the one, then you have the Snickers, and it's like they're laughing.
Well, they just. Well, maybe.
Sorry, can I just stop this conversation? Nobody is communicating subliminally via candy bar names. Can I just get that out of the way? Can we just stop this conversation?
Yeah, they are.
Nobody's
I thought it was
snickering
fine,
at
though.
you. No. The fact that you've got Galaxy chocolate, no.
We can't chew on it for a while.
No, but it is Twix. Come on.
The hell's a Twix got to do? Twix? What's a Twix? That's not even a celestial.
It used to be called Raiders.
99 people watching, nearly 100 people watching, earlier than normal, and this is what we're talking about. Isn't it wonderful? Let's move on.
Yeah, the big crowd.
The it crowd.
What
The big
about
crowd.
what about Star Bars and Galaxy chocolate?
Exactly.
Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere-edge horizon, formerly known as the curve of the Earth? There's only 90 people watching now. That last conversation got rid of 10 people.
Well, I've got evidence.
Yeah, only because they just got their chocolate bars from their attic.
Yeah,
What's
Earth,
the evidence?
yeah, for
Right.
Earth curve.
Yeah. So I was on Twitter today, and I was just reading. Some guy was just talking about there not being evidence of Earth curve, and that NASA stitched together the photos. And a baller responded with, "Yeah, well, there's obvious reasons they have to stitch the photos together. But here, take this. How about a picture of the Earth from the surface of Mars?" So there you
Eli,
go.
Mike discipline, Eli.
You'll see if you look really closely, it's definitely curved, that little dot
Eli, can
labeled
you mute?
Earth. So yeah, that's been purported today.
Got a quote from Godzilla. It
checks
says,
out.
Raft confirms the distance to the sun, end quote, just as Phil proves the existence of morons. Thank you very much for the super chat. I don't think Phil is a moron. I think he's just battling to keep his place in the world, his meaning, which we threaten. So I've said this many times to Phil in the chat. This is not going to come as a shock to him. But we threaten his, what's the word? I don't want to say credibility.
Raison d'etre.
Raison d'etre.
It's boomer dignity.
Beautiful, Adam. Thank you. Indeed. We are here in threat of his ability to say, I'm a professor, I know the answer to this, take what I say as read. But when he references the mainstream narrative with mainstream references and citations, we directly challenge those. So typically, where he's saying, I'm right, here's my citation, we say, your citation is wrong, here's how. Well, that threatens his ability to have people believe in the magic trick that is, I'm a professor, therefore I'm right. I am science. You know, he represents himself as the embodiment of science, and he isn't. You know, he reifies that profession into him and his existence. And like I say, we threaten that.
That's because that his credibility comes from the accurateness of the citations and the thing that the story, the narrative that he's proposing to people. Well, if he's professing, let me use that word. If he's professing this specific narrative to people, and the narrative is wrong, well, then what does that do to his credibility?
Just one quick correction from Godzilla37. He says radar with a star. He even super chatted me to get the correction. He says, damn, autocorrect, wrecking my jokes. Thank you for the second super chat. Any scientific evidence of gravity as we're talking science?
Well, before you go there, based on what Chocolate said, what happens when you're in a profession that you've given some time of your life to, and then you find out contradictions in that profession? So Phil Bell sees the contradictions, sees that it doesn't pan out. What does he do? Does he be honest with himself and say, wow, there's a contradiction here, I need to figure this out? Or does he sugarcoat it and make up other stories to cover it up?
He makes up other stories. He claims he works on paint that's going to hit the public soon, and he wishes he could speak about it more, but it's top secret. So he's nicknamed Secret Science Man in chat.
Most people, I think they just ignore it and go to work tomorrow. They don't bother with YouTube. They don't bother with Facebook or anything. The people that that can't handle it, that might need a problem to be solved or an issue to be resolved, they'll ignore it altogether so that they can go to work tomorrow.
Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Nope.
No, but QE has asked us. It reminds me of Phil Bell there with his radar off of black bodies. What is the sun made of? This
Like
is,
black body.
Yeah.
The defining point of a black body is that it doesn't reflect anything back.
does the sun claim to be a black body?
I
In their
believe so.
model?
Yes, I think so.
Mm. So this black body that doesn't reflect anything is being detected its distance by a reflection of something.
Okay, that
What
sounds
made
wrong.
of?
That sounds very wrong.
Well, it does to me, but that appears to be the claim within their model. They're using reflection of radar, which would be absorbed but not reflected, to determine the distance, as Phil's saying in chat there, I think.
Right, just going to read out Al Junkie's super chat. He says, I'll do it in the tone that seems most appropriate. Subliminal messages in candy bars? That's just nuts.
See? They're even telling you they're trying to drive you nuts by putting nuts in it.
That's exactly very good.
Yeah, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. That was a terrible pun.
Where are you, Tent?
I'm waiting for Friday, payday.
Seth is laying back like, look what I've done. I've turned everybody into a punster.
Well, the payday is full of nuts.
We're only halfway through this marathon. Let's stay on topic.
Brilliant.
We just need a panel name, Chocolate. We just need a panel member with the name of Herman.
Sorry, who? Hershey? Anyway,
Really?
we interrupt this pun session for housekeeping. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Ferrero Rochers, you see, they're just trying to put it all in your mind subliminally.
Adam, you're too fast for me.
It depends what's causing it.
No? No more molten iron core? No? I thought there'd be loads of candy
By the way, there was a recall on those Rochers. They said there was maggots in them.
Well, how do we get molten iron core to Rochers?
That's what the molten iron core is. Have you not seen a Rocher candy bar? Ferrero Rocher?
Yeah,
At the
that's what I got
outside,
from,
the inner layer, and then the
that's what I got
molten
from
iron
Santa.
core.
Wrote Santa a letter, said I wanted a Ferrari, and I ended up getting Ferrari Rocher. Terrible. Any evidence of gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
That sounds like it would negate the definition of gas pressure, so I think not.
The gradient. Remember the gradient guy?
Gradient just sits in line with entropic law, though. There's no defiance of entropy when you talk about gas dispersing, thinning out as it gets into a bigger volume that it's expanding into. That makes perfect sense. So this whole gradient argument is, as QE would put it, just a delta of gas pressure. So you've got to have gas pressure in the first place to have a delta of gas pressure. So in other words, you still have the exact same antecedent-consequent relationship in place. You've still got to have containment to achieve gas pressure at all. So if we didn't have a container, which we must have, we wouldn't have any gas pressure to breathe. And they are laughing at you as far as I'm concerned when they say the sky's a vacuum. What a vast empty space for gas pressure to fill. Yeah, we'd never have gas pressure in the first place if that was true.
Can you have a gradient without a container?
It's
No.
just another okie doke that tricks you into affirming the consequent using the gas we already have. But you're using the gas we already have to prove the atmosphere that you have. Can't do that.
Yeah, they've got a whole set of laws around sphere-shaped air, and air, unbonded gases, don't take the shape of a sphere, they take the shape of their containment. Any evidence of the R value? Earth radius. Tumbleweed.
Just for people new to this show, 4 or 5 years ago, it wasn't tumbleweeds. We had Glovers banging the door down, trying to tell us about their spinning magical water ball. Now look at it. Hell of a difference, huh?
As somebody whispered
Well,
Black Swan, it's on the screen now, just for the audience's benefit. If the Earth was a sphere with a radius of 3959 miles and every distance to horizon, that would be the physical limitation to your view, would be no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, as per the distance marked in this maths, OG, with a dotted line to it. That is what gives you your spherical geometry, and G to C is your radius value. Now, ordinarily, given the assumption that there is actually Earth curve, a physical blockage to your view, it would block the view of these oil rigs. But it doesn't. It's beyond the oil rigs. That would be the horizon. Ergo, the horizon isn't a physical Earth curve edge blocking things. It's beyond those geometric limitations. Now, the explanation for that is to say that the light to the horizon isn't actually representative of a physical limitation called Earth curve. It's a bent line. And the line that's bent that they claim now is bent at a rate that's derived from the straight line geometry at G to C in this diagram. And if you actually read the blurb that Andrew Thomas Young uses to describe this, he describes drawing a line of sight to the geometric horizon. Now, he's got to have one because that's where your geometry comes from, only to refract it into a non-geometric position marked OH. Well, we only have one horizon. And the horizon in the begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator is claimed to be a physical obstruction at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, and repeatedly and frequently claimed to be blocking boats and buildings into the distance with its physicality. Now, the moment that you show that the physicality is beyond its geometric limitations to block stuff, i.e. the hill that was in the way of things in the distance yesterday is now behind them today. Yeah, that's a physical and geometric impossibility. Ergo, the Earth is not a sphere Earth radius 3959, and the horizon is not Earth curve.
And in response to this argument, we've even been asked, why would you expect to see this geometric horizon, aka the Earth curve, aka the obstruction, the physical obstruction on your Earth, on your ball?
Yeah.
Why would we expect to see it, is their response.
Yeah, we're asked why we would expect to see a physical limitation to our view to block boats and buildings. That's what anti-flat earthers ask us when we point out that Earth curves beyond its geometric limitations. Can't be a hill in the way, can't be a limitation to view, can't be Earth curve, can't give you an R value. When we point those things out, we are asked by our opponents, why would we expect to see Earth curve blocking boats and buildings with physicality? Why would we expect to see that? Answer from us, we wouldn't. Welcome to Flat Earth.
Nathan, can you go to the Master B for the
I've just got
citation?
1 second, Tim, if I could.
Sure, go ahead, Adam.
Just in terms of what Chocolate was saying, this is what we were presented with by our good friend, Mick West. This is what we were given as Earth curve back in the day, back in 2017. These images, this was the curve of the surface of the Earth. This is what, I mean, this is like Pontchartrain, isn't it? But
Most excellent, Adam. Keep that picture there, and let's refer to it after I read this little citation.
Calculating
Yeah,
atmospheric refraction. Feel free.
This is some, as you can see at the bottom, copyright Andrew T. Young. Calculating atmospheric refraction. All the discussion above deals with plane surfaces, but the Earth isn't flat. Please explain to me what this means, given that Adam just showed a picture from a baller telling us, see, the Earth is curved. So it's amazing Andrew Thomas Young couldn't find that place to measure or calculate. Because he says all discussion above deals with plane surfaces, but the Earth isn't flat. To deal with refraction in a curved atmosphere, we have to introduce some geometrical considerations, which have been put on a separate page. Well, it's amazing. Why didn't you just hook up with this baller here, A.T. Young, and just measure what he's got there?
My question is, if the Earth is a ball, then where did he get the plane surface he was talking about from again? Where did he get that from?
And why is he claiming that air is sphere-shaped? When it moves through the
Precisely.
sphere-shaped air? No.
Notice the exclamation point is, but the Earth isn't flat. Notice the position he must have, even though it's not at all there, because the question is, any proof of R? No, but I'm going to make it R because I'm going to say the opposite. The Earth isn't flat, and I'm going to use the flat Earth measurements to get my R.
And you would only say that if the previous statement was saying the opposite. So you wouldn't say that, but the Earth isn't flat if your previous statement wasn't saying the Earth is flat, because that's exactly what he's saying.
Absolutely.
I think that
So when
comes into
someone sees this and doesn't sense it or see a contradiction and just accepts it, that person's not thinking, or that person says, you know what, I worked 6 years for this master's and I've got to have this job, so I'm just going to go with it. That's the opposite of what the panel members on this show are.
Yes.
And that's what I was talking about before. Like somebody like Professor Phil, I mean, you hold these guys, somebody like Andrew Thomas Young, subject matter expert, you hold that to an authority, right? That's where you're getting information from in the narrative. So when he says something and you're appealing to what he's saying, but what he's saying is wrong, what does that make you?
Wronger?
Yep. Wrong. Yeah, it's a shame.
Well, that is the conclusion to housekeeping. So with 120 people watching, good numbers today, more so than normal at this sort of stage of the show. So the reason there's 120 people watching today is because the people who are regulars share the show. So a very warm welcome if you have just joined us. There's a good chance you've only just joined us because somebody shared the show with you. Please do the same. Smash that share button. Oh yeah, just one other note. I know we did covered it at the beginning of the show. If you do happen to watch yesterday's show after today, it's not that I'll ignore your complaints, but because I've had so many of them, I don't want to reply. So hopefully that's now been dealt with at the beginning of the. Did we cover that in the pre-show or in the live show? Live show. Yeah, we covered it in both. Good. Hopefully that'll be dealt with for anybody who's a regular that's watching. Going, yesterday's show was terrible. I'm never watching again.
Before I take the picture down, I said this was in 2017 Earth curve. Yeah, I'd just like to point out that today you can't see it.
Why would you expect to?
Yeah. That's weird. Where did it go?
I don't know.
I'll show you. Here it is. So let's go back to. Oh no, it's off screen now. It's gone to my National Geographic slide. Oh well, didn't catch it in time. Had a picture of the National Geographic representation of what they claim Earth curve is, where they show a guy in side profile, aka Muppet Vision, aka orthographic view, and they show a physical limitation based on a sphere Earth getting in the way of a boat. Like that's what Earth curve used to be, pre-Black Swan. Now we wouldn't expect to see Earth curve. Now why would we expect to see Earth curve is the question we're asked. Happy days. However, go on.
Nah, I ran across Bill Nye's video, the other fallacy guy, right? And when I ran across that on YouTube, I thought to myself, I would love to run into this guy and say, hey, you know, everybody that's arguing for this now tells us we would expect to see what you're just demonstrating to people we would see. How do you feel about that?
Yeah.
I'd have a good old time with that one.
It's another. It's an Earth curve example that's akin to the Neil deGrasse Tyson example. Earth turns underneath the football. It's assisted by Earth's rotation. The field goal only went in because of the goalposts moving underneath it. That's what he's telling you, right? Then we come along and go, hey, all these people here say that there is no drift. In fact, they show us examples and are claiming to be experts that challenge us in our flat Earth assertions that there is no drift. Here's a picture of a trampoline guy dragged by a tractor. Check it out, he's not drifting. So what assistance by Earth turning underneath Mr. Tyson? How do you feel about that? Likewise, Bill Nye, as Chocolate's example goes. How do you feel about the fact that we're being told that we shouldn't expect to see Earth curve blocking boats and buildings? It's refracted. How do you feel about that?
Well, don't forget the necessary antecedent for that is it's got to be no Atmo day. So everybody's dead, so who could see it?
Especially because I don't remember him saying that, you know, the obstruction would be refracted or anything like this. He says the boat would physically go behind the Earth, and that's why it disappears bottom up.
On screenshot, it's exactly it. His whole explanation is a physical obstruction created by the curvature of the surface.
Thank you, Bill Nye.
Yeah, we wouldn't expect to see Earth curve because the horizon isn't Earth curve. We only have one horizon, and the horizon in their Earth curve maths is a physical limitation to block things. That's just not what we see. That is not what our horizon represents. If it was a physical limitation, it wouldn't move with the weather. Hills that block things don't move with the weather.
When have you ever seen the so-called self-proclaimed scientists wear a blue coat instead of a white one?
I've never seen what?
Well, most of the times it's a white jacket. He's got a nice, well, I can't even say that, but he's got a blue one on to match his little curved surface behind it.
I don't know, but Phil B is pulling rank in chat. He's telling Anthony that Sleeping Warrior, I had already finished A-level physics before you were born. Pulling rank, yeah.
Told you. That's what I said earlier. As Adam put it, that is his raison d'etre. That is the most important thing to him, that people around him understand that he's more intelligent than they are, and he understands the mainstream rhetoric that's portrayed out to them. And he can cite it with their nonsense doublespeak that we challenge. So that is literally the most important thing to him and the only reason he is here, because we challenge that.
Yeah, that's why I read it.
Yeah, Phil. And we'll be here challenging that every day for the rest of eternity. Thank you.
And when you have zero respect for people who are in any field who don't address contradictions.
Hey, Brian. Good to have you.
He did address it. He addressed it by saying he knew more because he'd learnt it before Anthony was born.
So
it's not to say that the contradiction still doesn't exist, but he can pass it off because he was born before Anthony.
So he was aware of the contradiction longer, and he still hasn't reacted to it.
So he's claiming seniority. I've known the contradiction longer, so that
I have seniority over you.
Okay,
Yeah.
buddy.
Yeah, but at least Anthony has a scientific experiment. What does Phil have? Pseudoscience.
And Anthony wore a white coat when he did that.
To make Phil blue.
So yeah, this has been a very PG-rated show today. Hope that's appreciated by all the audience, especially the ones who sent me complaints.
Was that really the complaint? What, there was a lot of cursing? Is that what it was?
No, it's...
Wait till you hear it.
The cursing is almost tolerated by the audience and indeed the panel if the end result is good, if a point's made, if there's something learned, then it's normally more likely to be tolerated. It might get a few minor complaints. This would be better if it didn't have any swearing in. Now, typically, I get around that by just editing it out when I make it into a video. But obviously, yesterday's nonsense wasn't going to get turned into a video. It didn't yield anything, did it? So therefore, you've just got the swearing, the obfuscation, for what? Well, yeah, that combination definitely ticked people off.
Yeah, was that the guy yesterday, Matthias?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not being heard. All right.
Well, he came in the pre-show, and I respectfully said to him, "Can you just tone it down a bit today?" And he immediately started calling us names and swearing at us. He's like, "Oh God, okay."
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, today. Yeah, we hear you.
Okay. We started questioning if clouds are responsible for rain. What does that tell you?
Well, that's one of the reasons I actually viewed it as positive. Good. Question it all. Come to the understanding. Have somebody detail how they've viewed it actually physically working as Adam did. That was probably the only useful bit. No, it was rudimentary stuff, and I realise that. So having to play devil's advocate to get the argument moving along, in many instances, makes me cringe, because I have to sound stupid to move the conversation along. But hopefully it does. That is literally the only useful bit of that discussion yesterday. A basic discussion about the water cycle.
Does fire really burn? Oh, come on.
What about phlogiston? Good examples. Now, I love how Neil's coming out with them like he thinks they're detrimental. No. Adam, can you... You're busy. I don't
No.
Phlogiston. Can you explain to Neil what phlogiston is and how that's relevant to his last comment?
Well, phlogiston was supposed to be this magical thing that converted things. So within terms of combustion, phlogiston was involved, I think. So it was a strange concept that basically, it's a bit like the old dark matter ether, isn't it? It was a thing that was attributed to do something, just to fill in a convention or a model. So whether there was a lack of understanding in this case, it's to do with burning, fire. The essence of that was attributed to a etheric matter called phlogiston.
So phlogiston.
Can I pull a Fonzie now? Hold on.
To parallel that with what you just said, so when you said, "Oh, well, does fire burn because of phlogiston?" Then, do you see where I'm going, Neil? That could very easily have some nonsense spun into it that might need unpicking. Now, I don't know if there's some elementary aspect to the water cycle that we might have uncovered yesterday. No, we didn't, but we might have done. And that's why I don't want to put the kibosh on that. Now, I gave that as my justification right in the middle of the pre-show, followed by a concession after a detailed explanation for why it was objectionable by 10th man. Now, you have to weigh these things up in the moment, and you're never privy to the hindsight that says this isn't going to end well. This isn't going to. You don't know that in the moment, do you? But I'm not trying to make excuses. I have taken everything on board that people have told me.
Does shit really stink?
I knew it wasn't going to end well. I think the most important part is the questions are great, and I like your patience at times when you wait for something to, play out. But I think hard and fast, the rules got to be is you got to be civilized and behave because the show must be shareable. I think that's preeminent above any of these possible findings. If we let the guy stay longer, if his behavior is bad, he's got to change it. He can come back in later. No one's saying he can't come back and say the same thing more civilly.
Agreed. Considering this show is a daily show, and obviously, therefore, there's going to be a certain repetitive nature to it, for good reason. We want to educate people on the subject. But to keep high viewing numbers, which we do, we're well over 100 viewers all the time, every day in, day out. Well, that takes some, and hopefully, as a result of keeping it a little bit more PG, by way of me personally, because I'm probably the worst culprit here in terms of the language. I say it on the intro every day, but I'm no different to anybody else when I get triggered. In other words, my language gets worse. And that's the reason for the rule. In other words, it's not because I don't want people to swear, because most people can tolerate an F-bomb here and there. They can, even if they're very, very straight-laced Christians. They can tolerate the odd F-bomb. You know it, come on, just admit it. Right? But if it's non-stop and it's gratuitous and it gets worse and worse and the person's more and more angry, that is where the line should be drawn. Now, that line has now been moved back a couple of feet. In other words, at the first signs that people are going to turn this into a, just disseminate the conversation into abuse and swearing, then it's going to be ended a little bit quicker than it was before. That's all that's going to really change. But I think that's all that needs to change, because I do still want people to get to their point if there is one to be made.
But slip up every now and then is human. That's not the problem. The problem, he started attacking panel members as if that's part of the argument.
A bit like the old days, isn't it?
A standard
rule
fare,
was
though.
there.
Exactly. Like the olden days? You mean like what we get from the opponents all the time?
Yeah, but if somebody used a profanity in just within the sentence to just accentuate it, or you know what I mean, you wouldn't pick people up, and that wasn't the point of the warning at the show. It was to stop them coming in to raiding nonsense, which was littered with F-bombs and insults as well. That doesn't help any conversation, and it was never about picking people up for their human faults. You know what I mean? But if you're coming in purposely, like yesterday, and just like, and perfect kicking out in the pre-show, yeah, if that's how you're actually going to behave, then you're not welcome here, are you? And that's not to say people on Discord, you're going to be held to some impeccable standard that we don't maintain. You know what I mean? It's just having a bit of respect, and that was the purpose of, to me, the old rule, which was just allow the conversation and not to allow it to descend.
Yeah, agreed. That's the whole purpose of it, just so that when the conversation reaches a point that it's no longer useful and somebody's just arguing and it's just a shout, that's an excuse for me to say, no, you're swearing, because that's typically what will happen. And I can kick them out for that reason without any particular discussion about, did I meet this standard of this rule about, no, just you were just swearing, so bye-bye. And most people will realise that I don't just kick people out for swearing, just for swearing. I don't.
Some of his things are funny, though, but he just gets carried away. Go ahead, Bray.
All right, thanks, Steve. What was going on with him, which is what goes on with a lot of people I find on the flat earth side, and I suppose the globe side up to a point too, is he probably spends a lot of time on Discord and having, let's say, BS arguments with people on Discord, but it was very obvious that he didn't think anything out concerning, I'm feeding back there on somebody, he didn't think anything out concerning the questions he had. He just wanted to attack whatever was the official explanation for it without giving it any thought. And he kind of masked over his lack of knowledge and lack of confidence in being able to just research something by just abusing, by being abusive and using constant swear words when they're not necessary. Swear words are very, 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 very well put if you put them in the right place. Nobody has a problem with them. But when you're constantly using them, it's a sign that you're spending all your time on the internet and you wouldn't be able to speak to somebody in reality in the way that that he was speaking with some of us yesterday. You just wouldn't get away with it in reality. You can swear all day in reality, but if you start speaking to somebody in that way and swearing as well, in reality, you're not going to get away with it. They're going to pull you on it. They're going to, So he's somebody who spends too much time on the internet and not enough time while on it researching and learning stuff.
Yeah, he ain't gonna.
What?
He ain't gonna call me a bitch ass in person.
Oh God, that's not what this is about, Neil. You should be able to rise above that by now, Neil.
I am above
but still,
it.
But Neil has a point though. He shouldn't be like this fella. Shouldn't be coming and calling. Like, I have no reason, even if a baller is in, I don't have any reason to get personal with them in that way. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, that's normally when they've lost, though, isn't it?
So piss him off more and ask him, hey, bro, why you mad? Why are you so emotional? Get over it.
I disagreed on a different standard. So what I'm saying, the reason I disagree is because an implicit understanding of how some people, not all people, have a very different persona online. They believe that they can get away with more than they could if they were in person. And, that's exemplified when you say something like, well, they wouldn't behave like that in front of me. No, they probably wouldn't. Me, I'm exactly the same online as I am in person, good or bad.
Yeah, I am too. I mean, the chances are that that person that was talking yesterday, that guy, he doesn't carry on being that way with people around him. It's not just about me; it's just people in general. He doesn't carry on being abusive, personally abusive to people in his general life, more than likely, like in that way, because he got himself into too many problems. He'd have too many people in arguments with him, you know. So
I don't know if
just a
that's
bad
true
habit
necessarily.
people get. Sorry?
Oh, you're being disagreed.
Matthias, if I might just not come into his defense, Matthias, I just happen to know, lives kind of a hobo lifestyle. Like he lives like out in the woods. So he's a very hardline individual. So I don't know. I think he's very quick to get angry. So that's definitely a character flaw. But I don't know. I don't know if he's any different online than he is in real life. I don't know for a fact.
No, I was talking in
Hobo, you
general.
say?
I wasn't specifically referencing Matthias. I have no idea what it's like in person. But in the same way, I don't think that's true. Even if you met Matthias in person, there's certain things that you wouldn't launch into, regardless of if you're an angry person or not, because you know that the person in front of you potentially could break your nose there and then. You know, they might not.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree with that at all. I just saying he may be the kind of person who's prone to, flying off the handle a bit.
Yeah, and likewise, people who have that in their online persona, i.e. they get they're short-tempered, are often like that in real life too. I'm about the same in terms of how quickly I'll lose my temper in real life as I am online. But with some people, they'll take that to the extreme online because they know there's no physical immediate threat to them, whereas their base instincts would say, don't do this, you might get hurt. So they'll moderate themselves in a different way. In other words, most of the time when you see people's online persona, where I say, oh, because I can get away with it, actually that's more like the real person that they're just containing when they're out and about, when I've experienced people like this in real life. So if they're a bit pervy, for a good example, people who are like sleazy when they're talking to the opposite gender online, this is true for both sexes, they, when they're out in public, will hold that back like a mask. The mask of their general public persona is hiding the fact that they're actually quite sleazy, and then that mask slips when they go online. So you're right. In other words, the person who's quick to anger online with threats that wouldn't necessarily go over in person because they might have an immediate danger presented to them as a result, are just presenting themselves in a more realistic way because of that lack of danger. So they just get to be what they really are. A bit scummy, a bit angry, a bit pervy, a bit whatever, because there's less of that immediate threat.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Pushback when you... Sorry.
Go on, Brian.
No, I think that lad was going to reply to you and I stepped on.
I'm good. Go ahead.
Okay, it's just less pushback you see online. I agree, Nathan. A lot of people, their online persona is who they really want to be out in the real world, but they can't get away with it. Or they know it's going to cause them too much bother, so they hold it back, that kind of way. I'm the same as you. I am the way I am online. If I say something to someone online, I have no doubt I'll say that to them in real life. I don't care. I have zero care about it. If I got to the point of where I'm saying something to you and I'm angry or something, then I will definitely say that to you in real life. No doubt about it. I don't care. But I don't do that. I do it because I'm online. I'm still trying to be just me. But a lot of people are like that, Nathan, where they want to be a certain way in real life, but they won't allow themselves to be that way because it'll cause them too much trouble. They'll be always bothered. So they hold it back, who they really are, who they really want to be.
Well, it's because of a certain fear. I believe this. It might not be true, but it's just what I think. People fear the public. So if you look at people's highest ranked fears, speaking in public is often higher than death by people's perception. So they're more scared of talking to a public audience, a gathering, for instance, than they are of being hit by a bus. Just to keep it in simple, broad terms. Which means that when you're out socially, That's a scaled down version of the same thing, which has certain social restraints and parameters. I've listed one in terms of physical threat. That's pretty an extreme example, but there's much more minor versions of that in public when you, as Patricia Steer used to put it, press the flesh. There are different social rules that apply, but most people can't cope with them. That requires a certain level of discipline to be able to function effectively and be sociable. And unfortunately, largely because of the internet, people are socially inept. People around me, I see in my general day-to-day outgoings, when I see normies out and about and interact with them, I generally am left with the impression that most people are socially inept. They don't know how to interact with other people when they're in person with them anymore. It's a lost skill.
Well, that's the whole point here. It's not just the cursing that goes beyond acceptable when someone just gets mad and loses it and says one or two words in a full sentence. That's normal human behavior, and a gentle reminder to, oh yeah, sorry, I'll keep it down. That's not this guy. This guy attacks panel members. You're going to allow people to come here and attack panel members without any recourse? No, I don't think so, because then you won't have any panel members. So there is a decorum, a way you behave, and he is incapable of behaving that way, as illustrated today in the pre-show. You kindly asked them. You didn't say, I'm going to kick you off for yesterday. You got the most complaints ever on any show because of that incident with him, attacking panel members, cursing, being rude, everything. Just ruined the show. Okay, so today you were gentle with him. You said, look, Matthias, you can come on, but you can't act like you did yesterday. And what did he do, Nathan, right away?
He cursed us out and called us names.
Right. So this guy is not capable of a public forum until he changes. And definitely, you should never allow anyone here to attack any one of your panel members without due cause.
With that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, though, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. A huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, hit the thanks button, hit the PayPal link, and all that good stuff. Another massive thank you to today's Discord and G+ panels for making today's live show possible. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on either Premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!